I'm being a spotter as well, but has anyone got any questions for her that you'd like to ask the panel?
Hi, it was just someone mentioned right at the start, I can't remember which presentation, about getting in more into AHP recognition in schools, you know, to promote going on the course in the first place, because what we're finding is less and less people are qualifying. And I wonder how much remit as a trust what kind we could do, or if, you know, whether we could all start getting into colleges and schools as professionals to promote our roles.
That's a very, very good question. So I missed your name. What's your name?
Emma.
Hi, Emma. Thank you for that question. We have NHSE called Next Generation, and they're encouraging us to do talks in schools. You know, it started with nursing, but from today, I just realized exactly like Dela says, we want our voice to be heard. And I think we need to pick up that voice a bit. So what I'll do is, I will contact Next Generation because we have one of our international nurse leads. He's one of the people who goes to the schools and everything. So these two can remind me so that we bring you into that thing. And it's around our region and beyond where you can go and do talks to school children.
Might be Sally. I don't know if we want to say anything because you've been very involved in.
Yes, but we are trying to really promote both sort of in-person and virtual work experience, and also getting out to schools as much as possible. So working with Care4Not Arts, which is a career platform across the whole of the county. So there is quite a lot of work going on. So yeah, we're definitely trying to get people up to do more of that. Be quite systematic about it, so that we're looking into it across a more diverse range of communities and really engaging. And so that we're drawing people into the profession from a really wide range of backgrounds. So it's definitely a work in progress.
On that note, Sally, that's actually quite good because there is the ICS AHP cabinet and the ICS nursing and midwifery cabinet. And I think there should be some synergies because Care4Not sits in exactly what you're saying, and they're also sitting in the nursing and midwifery patch. So we could literally just do it. So,
it was just on that point, because within the trust you can be an NHS ambassador as well. So that's another way to kind of get involved, and as part of that role you go into schools, you talk about the different professionals that you can be part of, and it's about, and then it's just another opportunity. I've just joined recently, but it seems really well organised and another way of getting involved. Thank you.
I think there's also something for any of us who are out talking about the trust, actually being explicitly inclusive in how we talk about the roles within the trust. And I'm reflecting that perhaps there's more that we can do in myself, colleagues, in any context to make sure that we are talking about allied health professionals and the possible mix of years as well.
I'm for the town there, we know nothing to do hospitals, retail physiotherapy team. Probably one of the challenges that we face as a team, and I know it's not my team, is trying to recruit to physiotherapy posts. Just now, normally when I put an advert out, whether it be for band 5, 6 or 7 or even 8, I often get a huge number of overseas candidates applying to these posts. And to be absolutely honest, I've always been very scared of looking shortlisting as an overseas candidate, because I've been so unsure about the sponsorship arrangements and what support I would get in the trust. And also, to be quite frank, I have heard some quite negative stories about, you know, the type of support you get if you endeavour to go down that process. So the position I'm in right now is I have actually interviewed some overseas candidates virtually, and we've had shortlisted a lady for a band 5 physiotherapy post. And that's really basically as far as I've got. I know she needs sponsorship. I've been given verbal support to go ahead with this from our HR team, in terms of they understand that this is an area where we are able to follow sponsorship through, because it's a profession which is in short supply. But really, right now, I suppose it's what next for me, not just for me here on my own, but it's for all our other team members who might want to pursue this moving forward. It's about what type of support can we get within the trust, and will this sort of link in with that and learning from our nursing colleagues as well, who may also be looking at overseas recruitment. So it's a long.
That's fine, Heather, don't worry. It does link with the nursing colleagues. I can't remember who in the allied health professionals contacted me when we recruited the international nurse lead, Terence Mahachi, if you've heard of him. We are in contact as an organization with about 5 agencies who are sponsoring people to come abroad. From abroad, I mean, it's a very, very long process, but there are agencies who can help you move from where you are to actually bring that person in. So what they need is to make sure that they've got their medical checkups from where they're coming from, their visa, the qualifications that we do. As long as they've got their paperwork as well in order, you can be supported. So if anybody's thinking about that, link with Terence Mahachi, because he's working from nursing to allied health professionals to everybody, because there's no time for just saying I'm dealing with nursing. We need people, we need a skill mix, we need workforce safeguards, as I put it, because from what we've heard today, it's about the patient in the middle, and that patient needs all of us, not just one person. So contact Terence Mahachi or email me and I'll link you with him.
Right.
And he's an absolute dynamo
He
as well.
is,
Really,
Yeah.
there's a lot of resource in that one person.
yes.
Lovely, thank you very much for answering that. Thank you.
So thank you, Heather. That's a really relevant question. And for me, I've been in that same situation that you described. I think it is some of the pastoral support that we need to wrap around our direct applicants who come, as well as working with the agencies to procure and actually, entice them across to our roles. So yeah, I think it's a very valid question, and I think we can do more to link with Terry and, maybe building a bit of an infrastructure.
He's got a team now. He's got a band 6 pastoral coordinator who's starting. Oh God, you can tell I've not been to DMH. The person started yesterday, 10th October. So they started yesterday, and then there is another band 4, 5 colleague. So the team is growing, and we need to grow that team from what we are saying. So yeah, there is a bit of infrastructure growing around it.
Thank you.
The challenges that we're having for NTs. So I just wondered about this golden hello and whether there was any scope that was going to be for AHPs as well, because I know it's the nursing staff and I have heard that in neighbouring trusts, OTs have been given the golden hello.
I've read about it because Terence asked about it. Do I know what it means or who it's given to? I would be lying. I don't know, but I can find out what it entails, because Terence was asking in terms of like the international nurses if they could get that golden hello when they come, and he got a response, but I don't have the detail behind the response. There are some yes, no's in it, but I'm quite happy for you to follow on from that. I don't have the details, but yes, it is there, but I don't know who it applies to.
I think, Karen, just to add to that as well, I think we would absolutely recognise that it's been used a little bit ad hoc throughout different divisions and directorates, and I know HR would acknowledge that they need to almost not streamline it as such, but take stock of actually what's been offered to who and when and for what reason.
Yeah.
I think as well, evaluating, is it working as well? Appreciating that there's more maybe than financial awards even, that we could encourage people to come and work with us at the trust. So I think it's an ongoing piece of work that we will keep taking back and raising.
And we have to think about that bit equitable.
Yes.
So it has to be fair for everybody. So I agree with you. We need to look at who is going to, how it's being done. I don't have that detail.
So also, I was just going to add, similarly with nursing staff and the recruitment challenges there, I know that actually nursing staff in their final placement are able to then get a position in the trust, and I know that's not the same at the moment for AHPs, so they're still having to get interviewed, and so I wondered whether that was something for the future as well.
Yeah, happy to look at that, because if we are doing it for the nursing, I don't see why we can't do it for the AHPs. Because at the end of the day, we are all that skill mix I keep talking about. I'm very well known for not saying safer staffing, but for saying safeguards. Because again, the patient needs all of us. It needs nurses, it needs AHPs. So happy to look at that in terms of like, how are we doing it with the nursing students when they finish their placement? Can we do it with AHPs? Personally, I don't see why not.
Same for the apprentices. It'd be great if there was an option whereby we could offer them a job at the end.
And then, yeah.
But, you know, we fund them through it. It seems a shame then for them to be offered a job at another trust because there wasn't one offered to them here.
I think just to come back as well, what I would say is there is no reason why not, and we can and we have. I think it's when we look at our nursing colleagues and make an assumption because they can do it large scale, and it's something that we still maybe need permissions to do. There are ways in which to do this completely. I think we could probably harmonise it, and perhaps as we're developing our professional, our CLEF function and the newer roles that we've got in terms of early careers, it's about how do we make that really robust and a clear process for you all to simply follow. But don't need permission. We just get on and do, and we have done. And our apprentices, we have welcomed to, yes, we've done a screening interview to create the contract, if you like, to bring them into a registrant position. But they've come and worked with us. They're all in employment now. We did lose one, Sherwood Forest, but she's now back with us in a different role. So it works.
It does.
Can I ask, with that recruitment, we've been quite successful within MISOP to have students and then go on to recruit them. However, there's a 2-month gap. So what of those people that they held on their caseloads, now I'm holding them, which is fine, I can do that, but I have a caseload of 40 people with 10 people waiting. Nobody apart from myself who can manage that caseload because the students left. There's going to be coming back probably December, but there's going to be 2 months where there's a gap in service within our team. We do have extra resources available to us, fortunately, with a lovely lady who's going to fill a supernumerary post. But for those patients who were receiving our support before, then they're kind of being held by myself, and then the rest of the team also shares that gap in service. Is there a possibility of offering some kind of bank system so that we can remain in a period of like safe staffing, or something that can hold those people within the service so they don't feel like there's a gap, and they're held by leaving telephone calls and home visits if they're high risk?
Can I just ask, is it because they're waiting for registration or they're waiting the staff, so they go away to wait for their registration? I understood that.
It's
What's the
both.
gap?
It's both. So they finish our placement,
Yeah,
and then they maybe do extra, like they're handing their coursework or they're waiting for their registration. So there's kind of nothing that is available for them within the service currently. Previously, I've worked in a service where I've held a bank position until I've been able to have my PIN number, and then I've been able to move from a band 3 or 4 and then step into a band 5. I don't see that within the trust, and I think it's a huge shame because
it is.
the support for the people that we kind of, our patients, for want of a better word, or service users, clients, they're such lovely people and they're so welcoming of us within their homes, and to make them feel safe and to help them make decisions for, in regards to their mental health and their dementia, etc., etc. And I just feel that their skills will kind of lack, will decrease, or they become deconditioned as a result of a process issue, possibly.
It is, as you say, a process issue. One we can have a look at, because in my previous trust, what we used to do between the gap of somebody having their PIN number, I've come from a cancer specialist trust that's very digitalized. If anybody has heard of Clutterbury Cancer Centre. And what we used to do when students finish, we actually give them supervision and a mentor to work, so they don't work as a registered professional. whether they're a nurse, an AHP, because category uses everybody in this room, you can imagine for cancer patients as well. So you hold them under supervision and they'll be paid either bank rates or on a kind of a fixed term contract until that PIN comes, and then they slot into their qualified or registered role. We're being told not to use the word qualified because everybody's qualified. That's registered role. So we can look at it in North Healthcare and see how we can work with our HR colleagues in terms of the process.
Yes. I think one of the disadvantages of being such a big trust is that we don't realise that in other places this is happening. And I know of examples across the trust in other areas where exactly this has happened. People qualify, they get a band 3 post.
Yeah.
We've encouraged people to set up banks for both registered and support workers. The thing about the bank is we need people on it, but we've done everything. The mechanism is entirely there for all bank staff, for all the AHPs. We struggle to recruit to the bank as much as we struggle to recruit to the fixed term and substantive posts. But yeah, that's definitely, it's elsewhere, it's really hard to share everything that other people are doing, isn't it, in a sort of connected way. And I guess that's a piece of the engagement bit, is how do we get this information out? But if you've got questions like that, at least if you come to Suzanne, Mel or I, we'll signpost you to somebody, that has done this and how they've achieved it.
I think as well that we recognised that during his halfway report even that he was achieving standards of a qualified professional. So we already knew that he would walk into the post, and we obviously had to go through the interview processes, as you said, but there was talk about informal interviews. At that point, we could have started the process a lot earlier and a lot quicker, so that now there isn't a gap of 2 months within service. And it's the winter period coming up, and there will be more admissions to hospital because we just can't support our older population just with me. And, I have annual leave to take, for example, and so on and so forth. So it's, I just want to create a seamless transition and a joined up thinking within our service so that these gaps are highlighted, and hopefully we can kind of, sew them up in OT speak and kind of, create a safe staffing service.
One of the things that I'm hearing with this, that we've had a morning where there's a fantastic narrative about the impact that different AHP roles can have, and also the, clearly the impact for all of you as well. So we've got that bit right. And on top of that, there's stuff about processes within the trust where bluntly somebody who's looking for their role, they could well be comparing us with a number of other trusts. And if their processes are better than ours, that's another factor in this. It's not just about all of the fantastic stuff that we've been hearing about. So I think there's things, I know Tabitha will have heard that really clearly, and we'll take that, but also that piece about learning from within parts of the trust, but also if you do know of other trusts that are doing something that actually, if you stack up, they're coming out better, let us know, because it may be that there's processes that can be adapted, developed. We need to be out there as the place where people want to come and work.
Worried that somebody else was snapping up in the meantime,
Yeah,
because at the moment, there was no refund, and he does have to have a roof over his head, and he'll be going to find work from somewhere in a different service to do that. And then if they offer him a position where we can start straight away and he's fully funded, then, it's a bit of a no-brainer.
It is a bit of a no-brainer. I'll pick it up, and I'm not promising the earth or heaven or anything like that, but I think we need to start doing something different. And what Paul said, I always call it shared decision making. So if you've got ideas that you've got, don't keep them to yourselves. Bring them up, be innovative, because that way I can then, I've learned loads this morning, that I wasn't even aware of. So bring those ideas. We will definitely look into our processes for apprentices, how we're recruiting for our students on placement and what we do about it. So I'm just sitting here thinking we have a lot to do because workforce is one of those issues that even CQC have picked on and said our workforce, both nursing and AHPs, because of the shortages and the strains within that, at one point it will begin to impact on patient safety. So we'll pick it up.
Right. So my question again is around workforce, but thinking more about the retention and progression of our AHPs. So it was really interesting in Della's slides to see that less than 50% of AHPs felt that there was scope for progression or opportunity within our force. I think within kind of the corporate division, we've got some really kind of visible leadership now through kind of the work that Della and Suzanne has done, and how do we replicate that in the other kind of directorates and divisions to ensure that AHPs are visible at a leadership. I think the things that I hear from people is that it's really hard to move beyond Band 7 kind of clinical role. I know there is the development of ACPs now, but it's kind of how can AHPs go into leadership roles but still retain their clinical specialisms as well?
It's developing. I think I've had this conversation together, especially when I first started. I've gone past Shell Forest in my life. And what we did to sort of make that visibility and to have that kind of shared leadership was create one strategy. Not self-care, obviously, they don't want us to call it a nursing strategy because there's a trust strategy. So a nursing AHP plan. What are our priorities? Where are we being challenged? And as we all know, recruitment, retention, development of our workforce. So if we create a clear plan of what's required for AHPs, what's required for nursing, on the same page, not separate entities, we clearly can then develop that leadership as an entity together rather than separate. That's my hope. And I've discussed this with Anne-Maria to sort of say, we don't need to separate like AHP. We created the Shell Forest, the strategy for nursing and adult, nursing and AHPs. And right now, as we speak, there is a deputy chief nurse who's an AHP. So it works. That's all I can say. We need to start working as a team and create those plans and priorities together as a team. And then the developments and career progression then kind of link into each other.
I mean, it's a really difficult challenge, isn't it, that we really face, to be honest, because we're maybe limited in terms of our financial pot at this level potentially. So it is how we influence, and I think I agree with Heather's point, it's that multi-professional influence that we can start to have at directorate level to talk about this is where your AHPs are, this is what they can do for our services, and this is what these roles might be. I think it's that level of conversation that we need to be having.
Can I just add to that, Susan? And how do you challenge that? I'm just thinking about myself and me and doing our AHP role, the last year is coming to an end. At that directorate level, how do we influence there to sort of evidence the work that you've done, the impact that it's had, and for that to then continue, not just be secondments?
No, great challenge, isn't it? In terms of we've got the pilots, we need to keep using what the evaluation is telling us, and when they're coming to Della and I again, I suppose it's about sort of showcasing, look, that's what the evaluation told you, that's what it's done. This is what, you know, Leanne and Danielle did about identifying those posts that should have been open to all sorts of professions. And it's just keep reiterating that, I think, and escalating it through our accountability reviews.
I think it's bottom up and top down. So it is absolutely everyone in this room's responsibility to be flagging up. Now, I know a lot of people don't have capacity, but we need to be raising as much as we can.
Yeah.
This is what you're missing by not having AHPs in leadership roles or only having nurses in leadership role. This is what you're missing. These are the risks. These are the gaps. This is the not complete picture. What you don't see is Suzanne and I at the accountability reviews or with the divisional managers or the directorate managers, but we don't have the budget. We can't make those posts. And the argument is always, well, we've got to put that in place. We've got to take something else away. And it's very hard for us to make that. And we make some steps. We have, I think in principle, most people would agree we need it. It's just the practicalities of getting it. And we can't actually control that because we don't hold the budgets.
But I think, sorry, I'm not agreeing with you. We can influence it. We can negotiate it. I'm sitting and I think we need to change the culture of like AHPs should just be in the AHP bit. The nursing should be. I don't see how you can't have a GM who's an AHP or how you can't have, I think we have a head of nursing in here who's an AHP, James. Yeah. So I think we're getting there slowly. We just need to change our mindsets. We need to change the culture of, if you see a job advertised and it say head of nursing, why not apply for it? Because you can do it. You can just look at the skill set, talk to people. I've advertised from the International Nurse Lead. It didn't have a stop of like, it has to be a nurse or it can be an AHP. We have interviewed for a chief nursing informatics lead. It's an AHP or a nurse. So we're opening, we can influence things and actually change things, our thinking.
Sometimes with these sorts of situations, I have to bite my tongue because I'm not allowed to do the operational stuff. Having said that, I think there's something about if you know what the blocks are, that's a really important piece of information, which doesn't necessarily wend its way through. So I'm listening to that and thinking that piece that Tabitha's just described there. If there are roles where historically we've restricted, for example, the opportunity because there's been restrictions around, oh, you have to have had this experience or this qualification. That's something that we should be working really hard against. And I think sometimes if you're trying stuff and you find barriers, don't assume that other people who perhaps got some power to change things know about those. You know, absolutely tell them. You've got some cracking leaders that we've already seen through this morning. You've also got absolute champions in Tabitha and in Anne-Maria. And please just make sure that you don't think, oh, but they're bound to know that, because sometimes they don't, and they can potentially influence and change things. So just sort of really encourage that rather than just feeling like, oh, well, that's how it is.
Emily and then.
Can I just bring up, from an OT perspective, one of the barriers, which I think is a national issue that a lot of OTs face, sometimes with those sort of more clinical lead roles, as OTs, we can't be non-medical prescribers. And I know, especially with the ACP pathway, and I understand that I'm not in this trust, I'm just saying more sort of nationally, but things like the ACP pathway or clinical lead roles that be more traditional for nurses, because nurses can be qualified to be non-medical prescribers. I think sometimes maybe there's a bit of a book there, or people not perceiving that an OT could, that maybe the value of an OT maybe not being recognised as much as the value of a nurse who can do that medical prescribing. So I just wanted to bring it up as an example.
Yeah, because non-medical prescribing is governed, like some of it is by the PGD guidance and what you can prescribe or not prescribe, or whether you are an independent. So I think it's basically kind of looking at the skill set of what's in there. And I don't see why we can't have conversations with
we don't need to be an AC, you don't need to be a...
No.
You
How
don't need to
about
be
to do the ACP?
Yeah, rather than a non-medical.
Don't need to be a clinical prescriber.
This is OT, no, that's
So I
really,
can't be
Yeah.
non-clinical prescriber.
Yeah.
There are 6
They still
ACP
do.
roles out at the moment across the trust, none of them require a medical prescribing.
Yeah, because non-medical prescribing is really, you really have to know the medication and stuff like that. So thank you for clarifying.
Physiology and pharmacology within it.
Yeah,
Don't do the prescribing.
You need to know about the medication.
medication,
That's right.
yeah.
But yes, no, it's a bit of a myth, and
Yeah, I think what I wanted to highlight was that absolutely OT on a national level, we cannot non-medical prescribe. And
a lot of the AHPs can't, but
But no, that's brilliant about the OCPs. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spread a vicious rumour.
Okay, not medical prescribed, but I have got no idea about medication for MS. So the reason.
I'm conscious of time, guys. Can we take one last question, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
I'm a band 3. I help OTs in my profession. In my part, I only can be a band 3. I can't be a band 4. I have to move from what I love doing to something else to progress up to a band 4. I think there is boundaries further down the line before we get further up the line to actually move. People who are passionate about the job and have done the job a long time. I've got colleagues who have done jobs for helping OTs for many, many years. And they're absolutely fantastic. But they can't move because they've not had university, they can't, they're too old, they're too old now, they're saying that they can't go to night school and, it's just added pressures for people. And, I think they need to acknowledge these people.
We do acknowledge. That makes me really sad because, again, going to the nursing, which is what I know, and I've got these two to help me out. We have the training nurse associates, who are band 3s and can actually now be supported to move from a band 3 to a 4, from a 4 to a 5. We have health education event this afternoon, right? Yeah. So we can find out why there's no other pathway that can actually help to support you from being that band 3 who's passionate, who's got experience, move. I'll tell you the challenges in nursing from a band 3 to a 4, what they're finding out. And I'm having debates and discussions with health education. It's the finances. So when you're in the band 3, you go on TNA, apparently the salary goes down to almost nothing. And it's something separate to what you're saying. Let's just see if there is a pathway from health education, even maybe you should know something that don't.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really, really relevant. There is definitely more that we can do in terms of how do we develop people and get them apprenticeship ready if they want to.
Yeah.
For me, it's recognising though that might not always be the route that people are looking for actually. So actually, what is it within services that can be developed around the band 4 role in terms of what does that offer? What does that offer the service? What does that offer our patients? And I think that's where we need to change some of the questions and the conversations that we're having. And then coupled with that, what are the sort of bridging programs that we can allow people to step onto in order to bolster the educational needs, if that's what, for the that level of a band 4 potentially. And there is more work to be done, but there is support coming from Health Education England. Bridging programs are available, and our apprentice lead for Trust, Debbie, is really, really helpful in terms of trying to look at what else we can sort of procure in terms of training. So, but thank you, it's a really relevant question.
If you want to progress, talk to Suzanne.
Okay, guys, your lunch is waiting for you. We could talk all day, couldn't we? I think that's just a symptom really of just how much knowledge and how much passion there is in the room. So thank you very much everybody this morning. Thank you to all our professional advisory groups for the work they've done with their videos and presenting. Have a lovely lunch and we'll see you back at, I'm thinking 1 o'clock, dare I say.
5 past 1.
Thank you.